Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we're looking at a pretty fascinating ancient text, Joshua chapter 13. Now, at first glance, you might think you're just reading some dusty old property deed, basically a boring administrative list of ancient real estate. But as we're going to see, this text is actually a highly dramatic story. We're talking major leadership transitions, shifting geopolitical borders, and honestly, some glaringly incomplete goals. Here's how we're mapping this out over the next few minutes. First up, the unfinished conquests. Second, dividing the East. And third, the one tribe left completely off the map. Let's get right into it.
All right, so Section 1, Unfinished Conquests.
The text actually opens with a pretty brutal reality check. It's a direct quote from God to Joshua saying, "Thou art old and stricken in years, and there remaineth yet very much land to be possessed." I mean, there's a real dramatic tension here, and honestly, kind of some ancient humor, right? It's basically a divine performance review that says, look, you're aging out of the job, but the mission is nowhere near finished.
And when they say very much land, they really mean it. Despite Joshua's super long tenure as a military leader, a massive chunk of territory remained completely unconquered. We're talking the borders of the 5 lords of the Philistines, the Gazathites, Ashtathites, Eshkalanites, Gittites, and Ekronites, plus the Geshuri, the southern Canaanite lands, and all of Lebanon toward the sunrise. The map of their intended nation was literally still full of blank spaces, which left an incredibly dangerous, porous border for the Israelites.
Moving right along to Section 2, dividing the East. Let's see how this all builds.
So we shift from that unconquered West over to the already conquered East, which really reflects on the massive legacy left by Moses before Joshua even took over. And this brilliantly illustrates how the ancient text handles some seriously dense geographical data. The lands previously conquered by Moses, which included territories of literal defeated giants like King Og and King Sihon, are now being officially divided up. The tribes of Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh are finally getting their permanent regions in places like the plain of Medeba, Gilead, and Bashan.
But, history is rarely completely clean. The text explicitly points out that the Israelites didn't actually expel everyone. Native groups like the Geshurites and Machathites stuck around and dwelt among them, which, as you can imagine, created immediate cultural friction. And then, tucked right into these dry administrative land grants is this really surprising, highly specific detail. Balaam, the soothsayer, the guy previously hired to curse the Israelites, was slain with the sword during these campaigns. It just kind of wraps up a major historical loose end right there in the middle of a property deed.
And that brings us to our third and final section, the landless tribe. There's a massive twist here.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the contrast in how this new nation is actually being structured. For the vast majority of the tribes, their inheritance was purely physical. It was real estate, cities, and strictly drawn geographical borders, just like the whole shebang we saw with Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh. But then there's the tribe of Levi. They received absolutely zero physical land. Their inheritance was entirely spiritual.
The text puts it so clearly. The Lord God of Israel was their inheritance. And we really need to emphasize why this matters. It is an absolutely crucial distinction. While everyone else was busy building cities, farming the land, and defending their borders, the Levites were given a specific function. Their inheritance was literally the sacrifices of the Lord. They were handed this direct, working relationship with God so they could serve as the spiritual anchor for the entire nation, rather than just cashing in on a piece of territory.
Well, that brings us to the end of this quick overview. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a pretty provocative thought to ponder. How does a nation build its future when its past battles are still unconquered? Joshua 13 leaves us looking at a people who are desperately trying to establish a new society, divide up their assets, and define their spiritual core, all while the geopolitical reality of their unfinished business is literally looming right on their borders. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this sparks your curiosity to go dig into the text even further.